Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. It's a new week, which means a new week of content, a new week for Celtic, another big week for Celtic at that. We have European football on Thursday as Celtic look to progress in the Conference League. We've got another big game at the weekend following that, and what is now a very exciting time towards the end of the season. But today we're going to be talking a bit about the manager, the guy at the helm of the football club, the guy who has transformed Celtic from what was a nightmare last season to, a pretty good place to be right now. A fantastic interview from him today on Australian television. I want to talk a little bit about that because I just thought that once again Ange Postecoglou has shown us how much of a class act he is and how lucky we are to have him at Celtic Football Club. Right then, if you haven't already, please make sure to go down below and hit the subscribe button. We are, I think, less than 500 subscribers away from 33,000, which is insane. We're trying to make the push towards 40. I want to get as close to that by the end of the season. So the next step is obviously by getting to 33. So please make sure to hit that below and also hit the like button, share the channel out with all your mates, and let's get into talking a bit about Ange Postecoglou. Now, I don't think that I need to make myself any more clear than I have this season over the course of my videos, over the course of my podcasts, my tweets. I love Ange Postecoglou. We all love Ange Postecoglou. I think you'd be pressed to find a Celtic fan who hasn't been won over or hasn't been impressed from what we've seen so far of our new manager. He's came into Celtic Football Club. He's transformed this. He's arguably giving us the football that we could only dream of, some of the best football this club has ever seen. He's won us the League Cup, and pretty much you couldn't ask for a better opening season, to this point anyway, for Ange Postecoglou. We know that, and I don't need to go into the details of how good the guy is, and I don't need to repeat facts that I give in every single video, but I think that this guy is ultimately a manager who, for as long as he'll be at Celtic, whether that was 1 year, 2 years, 10 years, 20 years, however long that Ange Postecoglou will last at this football club, I think that one thing that we'll always remember him for and we'll always look back on was the man himself and not just the footballing side of it. The human being that has came alongside the footballing presence at Celtic Park. We are so lucky that we've got a guy like Ange Postecoglou leading our club. I think from a human point of view, we have just been blessed with a guy who is ultimately just a top bloke. He's a guy who gets this football club, gets the history of this football club and the values of it. And that's all been sort of expressed in that interview today that I spoke about earlier on Australian television. So I believe it was Stan Sport in Australia that Ange Postecoglou appeared on the early hours of this morning to chat to some Australian journalists, some you may recognise as well, about his time so far at Celtic. A little catch-up, if you like. Anyway, he was on that over there. He was chatting away about his time at Celtic so far, amongst other things, and some great clips have been released onto social media from that interview today. Now, one thing that I wanted to say about this interview and about these clips was that the difference that you get with Ange Postecoglou in the Australian media and the Scottish media is absolutely hilarious, and even the fan media. I think that when you see the manager speak to some of the fan media outlets and the Australian media outlets, you're talking to a completely different guy than what you see when the MSM are speaking to him over here. It's quite crazy, in fact. I feel like it's two completely different attitudes and characters, and I love it, I must admit. And I'm not just saying that as someone who's got to speak to him, had a really good interaction with him on fan media conferences, but it is just facts, the way he speaks down to some of the journalists over here for the ridiculous and stupid questions.
Just want to throw in a wee point here. I say speaks down, really the wrong sort of words to use. Speaks down would imply that he treats them like dirt. He doesn't. They ask a silly question, they get a silly answer. It's quite simple, he's quite right.
Does give you a good laugh. This morning I should say, on this interview with the Australian guys, it's just brilliant. He seems like he's just 100% himself. He's so comfortable. The questions being asked are actually really good, and he's getting to sit down and do something he's proper enjoying. So, that's just one thing I wanted to talk about. I think it is great to see the difference, and you've got to love the big man for sticking it to the media over here sometimes. So let's talk about that interview. What was Ange on to actually talk about? Well, I think there's one question that I wanted to start with that could be looked at as a small thing. It could be something that not many people would care too much about, but it's something that I think speaks volumes about that character we were talking about earlier, and the man himself, Ange Postecoglou, not the footballing side of him, just the man himself. He was on and was asked about, well, he wasn't asked, it was actually Ange that brought it up. He was talking to one of the panellists who was on the show and talking to him and congratulating him on some work he's been doing with the refugee situation in Australia, I believe. And he brought up, obviously the history and the beginning, the sort of origins of Celtic Football Club, and what that means to him, and how he relates to it, and ultimately how he's kind of taken it, cherished it, and sort of, brought out the values in himself to kind of carry it on at Celtic. This was a quote. I found a real affinity with the club. We all know the club. We maybe surprise people over here at the beginning because we seem like we're a million miles away and almost on another planet, but we've always been more than aware of great clubs around the world, and Celtic is one of them. Their whole background and why the club was actually formed, to feed the Irish immigrants, there was a purpose behind this club that stayed with it right to this day. For me, that obviously resonates strongly, being an immigrant to our own country. South Melbourne, Hellas, Melbourne, Croatia, Sydney, Croatia, all these clubs were set up in the same way. They weren't set up solely to be a football club. They were set up to actually help people adjust to life in a new land. He speaks so well, and it's a point that I think, we all know, and we all really deep down know that obviously what Celtic Football Club is all about. It's more than a football club, and it's something that this club tries to we try and stay true to that to this day. You see so much work in the community with Celtic, so much work from fan groups like the food bank collections, and you see all the work they do and for trying to raise awareness for stuff like refugee crisis. And it's something that I'm really, when you see Ange Postecoglou talk about it, it's great, because it's all well and good when you see the stuff on Twitter that the club will post, and we see our own banners that the fans are getting out. But when you hear the manager himself come out and talk about these things, it's heartwarming to know that the manager does understand the values, and he's so invested in the values of the football club, and ultimately he's here to help try and get those values across. He's talking to guys on the other side of the world, and talking to a country on the other side of the world that might not understand fully what Celtic Football Club is about. And there's so many people in this world who are relatable to the people who helped found Celtic, the people who first supported Celtic, all these Irish immigrants who came to Scotland in the hardship. There's tons of guys over in Australia, like Ange Postecoglou himself, who have found themselves in similar situations. Ange Postecoglou, of course, is Greek-born. He's talking about, the Croats, for example, who have immigrated over to Australia as well. There's so many around the world that can relate to the situation in which Celtic Football Club was founded in, to help people who were in hardship. And Ange Postecoglou grasps that, he knows that, and the fact that he does resonate with it strongly, I think it strengthens the connection of supporter to manager, something that we haven't felt for a long time, but the connection that we have with the manager here in this situation, and the feeling that we get knowing that he loves and cherishes this football club as much as us and understands it, is something that I think we could only have dreamed of when he first came through the door, when we didn't know anything about him. So, it's great to see that. It really is. Talking about his own experiences, opening up, you just got to love the guy, honestly. He is a class act, and the relationship with us as a support right now is just fantastic. So the second part of the interview was based around Celtic success on the field, and Ange Postecoglou talking about, of course, obviously the fact Celtic Football Club can't go 2 seasons without success. They can't go 2 seasons without having a trophy. Now, this season, he's already delivered on that front. He's brought us the League Cup already. We're on a good sort of path, I think, to winning a treble. I honestly think that it is very reasonable to suggest that we can do that once more. We're top of the league. We're through to the next round of the Scottish Cup. We have that cup in the bag. And, the fact that he came in here knowing that challenge, knowing that pressure, it's another thing that I think you've got to tip the hat off to the guy for taking the challenge, taking the opportunity. I think what we've seen, obviously, and this is one thing I haven't spoken enough about on this channel, we've seen Eddie Howe absolutely shit himself at the prospect of coming in here and having the pressure. He couldn't deal with it. He needed his wee backroom team to do it. Didn't get it. Walked away. Couldn't deal with the pressure. Ange Postecoglou, however, came from the other side of the world without any sort of backroom support, none of his own staffing. And he's came over, he's took this challenge, he's grasped it with both hands, and he's now obviously put himself down as a legend in the eyes of the Celtic support. But while knowing the pressure there, and by delivering on that front, He kind of came in, and it's so easy for any manager or any human being to crumble under that, knowing how adamant and how demanding Celtic fans are of success. And that's just football, you know. He made a great comparison to Manchester United. There's always a reaction with Manchester United to you know, by their fans, to the managers, to the team, because it's a team that shouldn't be going without success. Man United have been without real great success for the best part of a decade now. You can't allow Celtic to even go 2 years without it. He understands that. He's delivered on that, and he wants to continue delivering on that. He still thinks there's plenty to do. That says it all. Right now, if you spoke to most Celtic fans, of course they're going to say we want to win the league, but you know, you think there's not much else to do. You know, we're doing our absolute best, but he still sees there's plenty to do there. He speaks about that in this clip in the interview, and it just makes you wonder, where is the limit for Ange Postecoglou and Celtic? What is the ceiling of success? I hope that it's European success one day, and I think Ange Postecoglou will understand that too. As he said, there's plenty to do. And the last Celtic related part that was put on social media today was another one that was good. It was about his transfers, about looking for players and how he identifies them. I love the analogy that Ange uses in this. So if you've seen the clip, you'll know. If you haven't, he kind of compares himself to his wife. Says, you know, if his wife goes into a shop, she knows what she wants, she knows what she's going to buy, and she'll go in and get it. You know, he compares that with himself and how he looks at the transfer market and how he finds a player. You know, and I love this. You know, if someone comes to him with players, he knows what he wants. He'll be able to pick out a player, and he knows who's coming into this squad, and he knows what he needs. He knows the attributes in the player, the qualities in the player, the qualities in the human being as well, which he touches on, and he's touched on many times. But the fact he knows what he wants, and there's no arsing about it, and I feel like that's such a change from last season. Now, I'm not going to sit here and deny there hasn't been pointless signings this season. For example, maybe James McCarthy. James McCarthy, however, to me, I think we can all agree, and I think we all know deep down it wasn't an Ange Postecoglou signing. I think we know what happened there. However, you know, I'm not even going to give James so much stick. He hasn't been as bad as late. But last season, our recruitment, when we looked at it at the time, of course, we were like, oh, great signings. But in hindsight, it felt like every signing we made last season was desperation. It was made out of the quality that they could have been, and they weren't really a fit for Celtic. Shane Duffy came in, it wasn't a fit for Celtic. Diego Laxalt came in, it wasn't a fit for Celtic. Barkas came in, it wasn't a fit for Celtic. Maybe it was because of representation given the cross, or maybe it was because of the quality of league they already played in, that we just went out and rushed these signings, I feel. Ange Postecoglou, every signing, every key signing he's made this season, have came in, they've played their part, and they've played their part almost perfectly. Ryo Hatate's came in and done it. Kyogo Furahashi's came in and done it. Matt O'Reilly's came in and done it. Every other player I can think of this season has came in and done exactly what Ange Postecoglou needs them to do, because he knows the player he wants and he knows the player he needs. We can talk about the revolution and the transformation of Celtic Football Club on the park. That's obviously the main thing, and that's what we see with our eyes. But one thing that we don't talk about enough is probably that transformation and that revolution of Celtic Football Club and the scouting department and the recruitment department and who we bring into this club. Ange knows what he wants, he's getting what he wants, and that's the reason we're seeing so much success at the moment. And as long as that continues, the quality of player we're going to keep bringing into this club with Ange as manager is just going to get better and better and better, and I cannot wait for that. So that was basically the interview in regards to Celtic. There was a lot of good stuff as well based on his home nation of Australia he spoke about for a while. It's really interesting. If you want to go and have a look at it, you'll find it on the Stan Sports Twitter account. They've got all the clips on there. It's good to hear him talk about his home country. He's still really invested in that over there. You know, he's a guy that just lives and breathes football, and you've got to love that. You've got to respect that. I feel like, you know, he's a guy who probably doesn't take a minute off from football. He's probably constantly thinking about the sport, and not just Celtic, but obviously his home nation and all the rest of it. It's great. He's just a stand-up guy. Absolutely love him. If you can't tell, I'm just absolutely buzzing talking about this guy, talking about this interview. You know, it's so easy to say that you can come into these things and be so over your head and head over heels about certain things and getting carried away. But just everything he says just feels like it's just top stuff, and you can't help it. Honestly, I love him. What a guy, what a manager, and I'm hoping for more content like this soon, just like the Joe Hart Valentine's Day content. Right, that'll do. I've spoke for a long time. I'd get this edited. Make sure to hit like and subscribe. I'll see you all next time.